our method perceives the world. I think a lot of what I'm going to talk about is pretty common for a lot of people. A lot of people get this. It's not revolutionary or new. But I think for many people, we find just telling this story is something that helps a lot of them join the dots of a lot of different trends together. The Internet of Things, it's not the whole world is IP connected, and people have experiences interacting across all these different technologies and devices. It's a trend that's happening, and these things, as many people realise, are generating an immense amount of data. And that data, and this is me explaining the model, so this is the start of the model. This data goes into essentially a couple of types of systems, generically speaking, that store different types of data. The first has been around since about 1977, when Oracle brought the first relational database to market, and it stores structured data. So maybe I buy something on Amazon or another website, and I buy a book, and it costs me $6, and it's shipped to me at this address. Very structured data. And a lot of these interactions are generating structured data. But a lot of them are generating unstructured data, music, imagery, sound, lots of different types of content. And this lives in, generally speaking, again, in an unstructured world. And so where we have relational databases primarily for structured, we have Hadoop for storing unstructured data and searching unstructured data. And whereas one has the ability to store many terabytes, the other has the ability to store many petabytes, an order of magnitude larger, about 1,000 times larger. And the price point is completely different. This is can be very, very expensive, and this is essentially open source and free. So we have the ability to capture and store and keep for pretty much ever large quantities of data. And this data has, when you look at it, patterns in it. And the question you have to ask yourself is, what's that? And for designers, this is great, because that's something we need to explore. You know, what is that? What are those people doing? Why is that happening? That's the start of insight, and insight is the foundation of experience design. So that's fantastic for us. There's many different types of technologies that allow us to analyse this data. There's quite traditional reporting tools that tell us how the business is operating, if it's achieving its objectives. This has been around for a very long time. We have ad hoc BI tools now, ClickView, Spotfire, Tableau, etc., that allow people to ask what-if questions of the data. There may be a problem or something in a part of the business or a system. Some support issue maybe, whatever. But you can go and analyse, and the key thing here is in real time, not having to wait for this timer to spin around. You can ask lots of questions and change the criteria until you uncover or surface the thing that you're looking for. So very fast, real-time, very visual tools. Then we have statistical analysis, and one of the key things here in recent times is the development of open source technology called R. And R allows us to do statistical analysis and visualization of data here, not even just statistical sampling, but analysing fairly large data sets. And then the other one is predictive. And predictive analytics uses things, models and mathematics, such as basic maths, and can predict what somebody's the next best action for somebody might be, a customer or a thing. What should happen next, and predict and learn that. And this analytics layer has, in recent years, really taken off, as has the development of Hadoop, the development of the principle and experience design, and obviously there's explosion of the Internet of Things. We think this model is the critical thing to understand with all these technologies as they converge. That the data is coming into the system, the tools allow us to find and analyse the insight, give us insight, that we can enhance that insight with other things that we do in the world of design, such as ethnography. We can talk and engage with subject matter experts, whether it's aviation or retail or financial services, whatever industry. There's people with great amount of knowledge, and with the business themselves, because many of the people that we work with have 20 odd years experience in their industry, and that's fantastic knowledge. On its own, that knowledge can be super dangerous because you're interpreting potentially what this customer wants from your experience, and that can be very inaccurate, very subjective. But when you take the insights and use all the different techniques for servicing what's happening, of which the data is a key one now, you can identify, you can let the needs surface. So, and that's the start of designing relevant and engaging services or experiences, products and services as experiences that people will use. And that's used more than once, as in they haven't just downloaded it, tried it, and then never opened it again. Designing experiences via channels, because consumers don't want experiences via channels. They want what they want when they want it. They don't really care about the channel. Okay, we're all interested by gadgets, but a gadget only holds so much interest for a short period of time, when that gadget is delivering the right service to you that's relevant and engaging, that's the critical thing, because that's what's going to drive revenue for a business. And the process of designing experiences is about designing services that deliver the right, relevant and engaging experience across the channels, not on the channel. And the insight is the first step in surfacing the unmet needs so we can design those experiences. And then we can apply some fairly standard things that we do today, such as continuous delivery, models, test-driven development, continuous integration, and so on. Essentially, what we're forming here is hypothesis, and then we test and validate with the consumers, beta groups, whether that's the right thing. And we have lots of hypotheses and test and validate lots of different things, because here we can test with beta communities. Who are maybe very collaborative. They may be sharing great insight with us as part of the insight process as to how they find products and services and experiences they're having, and we can publish MVPs and prototypes to them and engage them. And there's many different ways of thinking about open innovation and many different tools for doing that, but it's a very safe way of engaging and learning in this process of test and validate. Testing and validating hypothesis. IoT, great, another big trend. Experience design, that's another big thing. Customer experience, there's so many people talking about that. Analytics is a huge trend over recent years. Open innovation, less so, but still very important. Not to forget Key thing here is open data. That's a great tool because you can access, use other data sets. An obvious one that people talk about is weather. How might weather fit into the data set that you have? What could you learn about that? So we've got lots of different trends going on here. But when you bring them together, the key thing here is that as people interact, they generate data, creates insight, which forms hypothesis that you can then go and test and validate back with the consumer. But what we find is, many of our customers understand a lot of these things, but here what we're saying is they join together. And that model is the trick, because that's all about competitive advantage. And the speed at which we understand what this person is doing gives us the insight to help us form hypotheses to test and validate that allow us to tune the experiences of products and services to be more relevant and engaging, or create new ones that meet unmet needs. And the speed at which we can do that as a company is now our competitive advantage, because if we're doing that and meeting that need faster than our competitors, that's how we drive top line revenue. But there's another thing going on here too. So whilst we think the speed of that circle is the competitive advantage, something we think, here's our own hypothesis, our own theory, that something's changed in IT. In post-war IT really, IT was about the how. Whereas here, we would argue that the first time IT has become, and design has become, the what and the why. Because we're learning what needs to happen in the system and why it matters to that consumer. The process is the what and the why, as well as that, and the system is the how. And so we would say that the strategy, instead of coming purely from the management consultants, has shifted into the model or into the system. And so we call this emergent strategy. Businesses struggle to continuously innovate, and we think this creates a model where business can do this on a continuous basis. So whilst you have a continuous delivery model, there's a continuous discovery model that's helping you surface the hypothesis of need, test and validate those, which then form into your strategy, which ultimately feeds your product roadmap and your delivery backlog. And so we feel that that model is critical to drive innovation in organisations now.